What's up, everybody? Squaring Around is proud to be in partnership with Elite Sports. We got our own stuff on there. Check it out, elitesports.com/square. You can also check out the full line of products they have supporting Texas State athletes at elitesports.com. Use code SQUARE at checkout.
Tired of winning the tailgate but losing the games? We can't help that. But we can tell you what the hell is up with each team and what's going on across sunny San Marcos. Texas State fans, get on your feet. You're listening to Squaring Around with Jakob Rodriguez and Andrew Zimmel.
Welcome to Squaring Around. I am the Texas State Sports Press, Andrew Zimmel. On the other side of my camera is our incredible producer and co-host, Jakob Rodriguez. This week, we have writer, podcaster, historian of the Sun Belt, Scott Watkins, on talking to us all things matchup this week against the Golden Eagles, the Sun Belt as a whole, and all the fun shit in between. So, Jakob, I thought it was a good interview. What'd you think?
I think Scott, in a lot of ways, is kind of a pioneer of the Sun Belt, like as far as like media coverage goes, because like this league was really not getting like the national attention it deserved. So you look towards like beat reporters all the time, right? Like who's covering this team kind of day in and day out. And Scott's always been there. So it's kind of cool to talk to people who really know like what the Sun Belt is and like where it's going. Also, fun fact, right? Texas State, ESPN Plus thing, right? We talked about it before. Sun Belt Media Days, their whole thing was the Sun Belt is rising. They had this whole commercial. If you watch that now, you will see a lot more Texas State highlights spliced in. I'm just saying, it is rising.
We are rising. Here's the interview with Scott. Welcome to Squaring Around. I am Andrew Zimmel, the Texas State Sports Press. That is our incredible editor and co-host, Jakob Rodriguez. Hanging out with us today is Scott Watkins from the Sun Herald and also from Twitter Spaces, Elon Musk's X, Sunbelt Fun Day Friday on a Wednesday, which I am a constant contributor to. One of the few people who is there every fucking week. This will come out probably after we do it, so you want to go back and listen to it. They're all archived as well on Twitter. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited.
Whoa.
Well, this is why we brought you on. It is Southern Miss Week. It's the opening of the Sun Belt season for Texas State, who has really impressed a lot of people across the board here. Let's start with this, Scott. When we talked before the season about Texas State, I remember both of us kind of having a little maybe hesitation about where we should put Texas State in hierarchy of the conference. People pick Texas State bottom of the bucket in Texas when it comes to FBS programs. I thought that was a little unfair. But in the Sun Belt, I thought it was fair. You got to prove it. So what is your takeaway through 3 weeks on Texas State from afar?
I think that the ceiling is a lot higher than I originally expected. But I'm still kind of sitting back and waiting for a couple of Sun Belt games. Of course, this first one's going to be big. Texas State to me is like that. It's still like a brand new shiny product, like you just pulled it out of the box. And I don't know how long the batteries are going to last, personally, but I do think that it can be a great thing. That's kind of my takeaways. I honestly believe that Texas State at its very best could be a West Division title contender, but I don't know that as of yet.
It's funny you say that too, Scott, because this week, GJ was like, something has to change, like procedurally for this team, because like our coaches need to be better. I need to be better. Our team needs to be better prepared.
I have to do a better job throughout the week to get these guys prepared, and that'll happen moving forward.
And I was like, what the hell? It's week 4. We're 3-1. I don't know what the hell's going on behind the scenes, but what? Yeah, it just kind of gave me pause. So, yeah, you're right. It's super new, and they're still figuring it out in real time.
And what's funny, I think, through 3 games or whatever, the 2 games that we've seen from Texas State at home, they have been a little sloppy on the penalty side of the ball. They have had a couple of false starts. They had a couple of holding calls that took away some big drives. And I think you're right in that regard, Jakob, that they do have – and GJ, more importantly, is right. They do have some stuff to figure out. So, Scott, let me ask you this about Southern Miss, because – I said before the season that I thought that I thought Southern Miss would have one of the better defenses in the conference. I haven't really seen that yet, though. You know what I mean? We talk every Wednesday about the different defenses in the Sun Belt. I said Texas State couldn't put 35 points up per game. I mean, I look at the Sun Belt West right now, and that might be on the table here.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I mean, there's not a lot of great defense on this side of the league anymore. Troy's taking a step back in that regard. South Alabama's going to be a tough one, but Louisiana taking a step back from a couple years ago. Southern Miss has absolutely taken a step back. There's a lot of what I think is a lot of big play potential for a team like Texas State, and for a team like, and we've already seen a team like Georgia State on the other side. It seems like offenses can open up a little bit more than this year than they could last year. I think it will be tougher in the East, but in the West, I do feel like the offenses are going to become a lot more wide open on this side of the conference.
Why do you think that Southern Miss took a step back on defense?
It all starts in the secondary, where they lost just about everybody, but the free safety, Jay Stanley, came back. They've lost 3 defensive backs to ACL surgery in the last 2 weeks now. They are this is the one stat that I keep coming back to for this Texas State game. They are Southern Miss's plays of 30 plus yards allowed with 13, and they're tied last with plays of 20 plus yards allowed. Texas State is first in 20 plus yard plays in the Sun Belt. So that's kind of the matchup that I think is gonna play pretty large, gonna loom pretty large this Saturday. And it's just the back end of this secondary is not equipped right now to handle a team that can push downfield like Texas State, if Arkansas State is doing it.
That's what I was going to say about Arkansas State too, because that I think was a surprise to everybody across the board. I had Arkansas State as one of the worst teams, and they were able to come in there and get a win.
Yeah, I still think that Arkansas State is the worst team, but then Jalen Rayner, true freshman, makes his first start and just upends everything for Southern Miss. And all the fans, it was so weird over the weekend, all the fans could talk about was the Southern Miss offense. The Southern Miss offense is disappointing. It's not doing what we thought. This was probably Will Hall's best conference game from an offensive perspective. The defense was terrible. The special teams was terrible. When we go back, and remember talking about Southern Miss last year and how this team just didn't have a quarterback and didn't have the ability to move the ball downfield and put together first downs. They went to a bowl game and won the bowl game without all of that. And that was because it did a lot of little things. It got a lot of explosives out of defense and out of special teams. It had a big time punter who was flipping fields. It had a defense that was getting a pick six every other game. None of that exists this year. And I think that's a huge difference and a big reason why Southern Miss is 1-3 right now.
Which is really surprising, I think, to everybody that this was a Golden Eagles team that we had picked to compete in the West. I do want to say this. So you talk about the bad secondary for Southern Miss here. And we've gone back and forth. And Jakob, I've argued for a while that TJ Finley is one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. After I saw what he did to Baylor and then his game against UTSA, I said, okay, that's enough. I like this guy. I think that he's a good quarterback. Scott, you're on the other side of things. You do not think
I'm not on
that
the other side. I'm not on the other side. I like Darren Granger more. That's all I said.
Well,
you
Scott, that's a good note that Andrew added too, is because Andrew said after Baylor, which, if you ask him before Baylor, there's a completely different fucking story we're talking about on this podcast. Do we have a quarterback? Did we waste all this money on horses and Ferraris in Bobcat Stadium? What's going on?
I contend that you want to have one quarterback, not two. We both put our money on Malik Hornsberry, and it turns out we were wrong.
Well, it turns out we were almost right, because he's still getting fucking snaps, apparently.
He's getting snaps, but in blowouts.
Lindsey Scott Jr., the offensive analyst, last week told us, hey, we're still a firmly a one-quarterback team.
Yeah, no, I think that I think it's like 90% TJ, 10% Hornsby at this point. Like, I think we're willing, but this is where I was going with this, because you don't think TJ Finley... Scott does not think TJ Finley is an accurate quarterback after watching him at LSU and Auburn. And through 4 games, he's looking pretty accurate. 1 turnover.
We had that
a pick six, granted.
We had that conversation during the UTSA game.
Huh?
We had that conversation during the UTSA game. I think he's a much better quarterback than he used to be. I think whatever the system is, I think it's helping him out a lot. And I do think that he's a top 2 quarterback right now in the Sun Belt.
Okay.
Whenever he falls, though, and gives up a ball every single game, though, that's kind of bad, because I think ball security is still just such a glaring note on him,
Oh, yeah. It's like a D-.
Yeah, no, he just falls like a tower every single time. Just whoop, ball comes out.
Yeah. Well, in the pick 6 against Nevada, too, made me super concerned because that is something.
Ugliest one, for sure.
Yes, and I don't know why. It was an abnormal play for him through 4 games. Like, I had not seen him just stare a receiver down and put it in between the numbers of a defensive back. But then he made it up by throwing a perfect pass in the back of the end zone, which nobody go back and watch that replay.
I actually
have
have I actually have that on tape. You want me to play it? We own the rights to it. Boop.
There it is. Boom. I don't think he was in. Watching the feet, I don't know if that was a touchdown. I think that was a out of the back of the end zone catch, but that's just me. The win's a win. It wasn't a 7-point win. That touchdown wasn't going to negate a win or a loss. But boy, oh boy, thank God we don't have instant replay in Bobcat Stadium, because that was a close one.
Yeah, my that whole first half, I went down to go shoot video, and I let Andrew be in charge of our tweets. And I like just shooting video or photo for the first half, and then I go up and figure out what the hell I'm going to write about. But
figure out what damage Zimmel's done on the Twitter account.
That whole first half, though, I was like, this is all like unusable. Like, all my clip names for everything is like, bad, lame, sucks. Like it's really shitty. And then I think I had like a first half like highlight reel of us just giving up pre-snap penalties, or them really Nevada giving up pre-snap penalties that led to our best series on that first, in the first half.
So, Scott, back to Southern Miss here. Texas State against Nevada gave up 17 points early. They couldn't stop the mobile quarterback. They just had such a tough time stopping the run. And I think that's kind of been like the conversation through 4 weeks, has been Texas State's inability to consistently put up a good run defense. The one thing Southern Miss has done well over the past 3 years is run the ball. So what does that look like for the Golden Eagles right now?
Yeah, so that was actually something that got off to a really rough start, and something that Hall talked about was a thing that needed to be fixed. Is that Frank Gore Jr. was through 3 weeks. I had people texting me and calling me, and they're like, why is he the second leading rusher on the team? Why does somebody else have twice as many rushing yards? Why does he have 80 rushing yards in 3 games? They finally seem to have kind of fixed that issue against Arkansas State. He had 90 rushing yards just in between the guards alone on like 7 touches. So I think that's kind of number 1 and number 2 for them right now, is establishing that run. And they're in a bit of a groove as well. And they've got the second running back now too in Dree Clark. So that is going to be the most important thing. And I think against Texas State, that's going to be what they want to do. They're going to want to establish that run. I want to see Coach Hall settle down. I feel like Will Hall is getting a little too pushy with the play calling. I feel like he thinks he knows he's got a competent quarterback for the first time at Southern Miss. He wants to do everything all at once. And so you've been kind of seeing these weird play calls here and there that just kind of don't make sense, or they're just too complicated when you needed something simple. I want to see it kind of dumbed down a little bit against Texas State, and I want to see them pick up, another 200-yard rushing game. I think, to me, that shows signs of progress, and that's where it's going to begin with Frank Gore Jr.
Well, a 200-yard rushing game probably wins you the game. Let's start it there.
It didn't win you the game last week.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair point. I just don't know if your offense is predicated, because we saw what Texas State did against Nevada, where it was a quick 3-and-out that turned into points. Another empty drive that turns into points, a pick 6 that turns into points, and all of a sudden you're at a 17-0 deficit. And to Texas State's credit, they never showed any panic versus me, who was panicking on Twitter all the time.
You're panicking pregame too.
I was panicking pregame, but here's the difference. I panic pregame because when everybody says one thing, that means the other thing's going to happen. Like, if all the Texas State fans are like, this is a 35-point win, we're not winning by 35. Like, it is way sports works. If all the fans are dumb, sorry guys. If everybody puts the fan money on one team, odds are something bad's going to happen on the other side, just karma. So when everybody's telling me that Texas State is going to beat Nevada by 100,000 points and then go into Southern Miss and beat them by 40 points and then go in and then play South Alabama for the West title at the end of the year and then win the Sun Belt, like, let's pop the brakes. Let's just do it week by week. That's all I'm going to say. Let's do it week by week. Yeah, man. I mean, look, if Texas State gets down to Southern Miss in Hattiesburg, let's talk about the environment there, because Texas State, some fans were upset that there was only 19,000 in the stadium against Nevada. I mean, I feel like 19,000 is a pretty damn good number for Texas State, considering that there was like 200 people there a couple years ago. You have talked to me about Hattiesburg before. What's the fan environment down there like? And Texas State's going to be one of the better teams that comes through town right now.
They absolutely are, but my thinking at this point is I don't know if the casual Southern Miss fan knows that. I don't know if the casual Eagles student is aware that Texas State is an emerging team within the Sun Belt West and a very exciting team to watch. So I actually don't know what to expect. The number's going to be between 20 and 25, probably around 24, 23. The visitor side, I think, if I had to guess, is going to look a little rough. I think it's going to look a little skimpy over there. But the home side has looked good all year long. It's looked very thick. The end zone, the touchdown club side, it usually looks pretty good. It's going to be kind of half and half.
Any Tridents that we have to worry about?
No Tridents. No Tridents you have to worry about. The pregame atmosphere is fantastic at Southern Miss. It is very good. I don't know how many of those people make it into the building.
Which is completely fair. I want to talk to you about the Sun Belt West in whole now, because it seems like last year, every week we were going through, okay, well, maybe this team's good, maybe this team isn't good. Through 4 weeks, it's hard to put your finger on who's good and who's not, because Texas State has a win against an FCS opponent and a Nevada team that now has one of the longest losing streaks in the FBS. I think it does have the longest losing streak in current, like, active losing streaks. I look also through the rest of the West. Lafayette, Jakob's favorite school, they're not doing a whole lot there. South Alabama, what do we kind of expect from them? So it's like, what do we expect out of the West right now, Scott?
Yeah, well, right away, I have no respect for Louisiana. I just want to make that clear. I don't like the Cajuns, and I don't think they're going to be very good. Alabama.
Call them ULL, Scott. Call them ULL.
I won't do that. My AP style brain won't allow me to do it. But South Alabama, I don't know. Like, they've looked in 3 games, they've looked terrible. And then in 1 game, they've looked just amazing, like the way that they were supposed to look. And then they turn around and have that letdown against Central Michigan. I don't know what that letdown is indicative of. I know that back when I was at Troy, I saw that happen. I saw Troy go into Baton Rouge and beat LSU. And then a few days later, scored 8 points in a loss to a very bad South Alabama team. But they went on to win 10 games. So I don't really know how South Alabama is going to respond. They're obviously very well coached. I still think they're the most talented roster on this side of the conference pretty easily. But
really?
There's something going on over there right now. And I don't know what that is. I don't know how they're going to figure that out, but they probably need to. I still think South Alabama is the team you're chasing. Troy, Texas State, and then right underneath that, Southern Miss and Louisiana is kind of my tier.
I'll say this. I think the Texas State's 2 wins away from taking that belt of most talented team. Because the one thing that we don't talk about enough on this podcast, Jakob, is how damn good that defense has been. It seems like they consistently get after the quarterback. They got dudes on that defense that are just dogs. And it's weird because they're all new names for the most part. There's not a lot of guys that you say like, oh, I remember when he was a redshirt sophomore and doing like X or Y. Like, it's a bunch of dudes who are either from Incarnate Word or transferred from other schools. So it's just like the defense for Texas State has some guys, and then the offensive side of the ball between Watkins and Joe Dirt and the 3 or 4 running backs that Texas State has been able to kind of roll out there. Look, you don't want, like I said, I'm not the type of person who's going to look 4 or 5 weeks in the future and say, okay, when Texas State is a 9-win team going into the Sun Belt Championship game, they now have a chance to win. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that right now, to say like South Alabama is the most talented team, that might be true. I think in 2 weeks we might have a different conversation.
I saw Brian Holloway kill 2 men last week, so in front of an audience of 19,000 is crazy. I looked this up too, Scott. Your first game against Alcorn State in Hattiesburg was 30,000, or over 30,000, I should say. And then against Tulane, it was 25,000 too. So yeah, I think whatever crowd shows up to Hattiesburg will be like the 3rd highest attended game, I think, that Texas State has played in front of this year.
Which is saying something, considering that the 2 highest ones have been on the road and then the first home game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about UTSA? Does UTSA count?
Because right, Baylor was like 44 or something like that. And then UTSA was 49, 47, something like that. And then
Okay.
the first home game was 27. Yeah. So whatever.
So,
Insert
I mean,
this
you
atop
guys
of
think
that.
you're going to can you get more than 27 for a Scott in Hattiesburg?
Yeah.
No. He says no. He shakes his head on the podcast.
Yeah.
No. All right, that's fair too. What are we missing about the Southern Miss team, Scott?
You talked about a little bit with the Texas State defense that kind of plays pretty well for the Bobcats because pass pro has been a problem for Billy Wiles and Southern Miss. It was a problem against Arkansas State. This Southern Miss team is not. When I'm watching them against Tulane, against Arkansas State, they're not losing every play. Like that's not what's playing out. They're not a worse team than Arkansas State. I thought that Southern Miss won more plays than Arkansas State did, but obviously that doesn't matter. What matters is there's like 2 or 3 plays in the first half of these games that are altering the entire course, that are
Mm.
changing everything. I mean, there's a play where Billy Wiles' protection just breaks down and he throws a duck over the middle, gets picked off. Arkansas State scores a touchdown right after. There's a play where they go to punt and they've got, I think they said they had a new kid on the left side of this punt formation and they no longer had contained. Punt got blocked. Arkansas State gets a field goal. You take those 10 points away, somebody else has more points than the other. It's Southern Miss. Those little tiny issues that they're kind of running into, like against Tulane, had the missed touchdown on 4th down where Frank Gore Jr. overthrew a wide open tight end. Those are costing them entire ball games, and it's just 2 or 3 plays. And when you have a team like Texas State that's getting into the backfield constantly, that's going to pose a really big issue for Southern Miss because they haven't figured that out yet. I think Texas State's going to come out and be really aggressive, and that's going to be their biggest advantage on defense.
And it's weird too because I was kind of leading it this way that like if Texas State gets down and Southern Miss can run the ball really well, now you're in trouble. But the opposite is true as well. That if you cannot run the ball very well, if you're Southern Miss, you're in a world of hurt. That's a game. Now, okay, I said before the season, Jakob, you've heard me multiple times that nobody's going to average 35 points per game in the Sun Belt. There's no way that a team is going to consistently score those type of points. Texas State right now is on track to do something pretty similar to that, to average around 35 between the entire season. Is that possible, Scott? Was I wrong about how good these defenses are?
I don't think the league is nearly as good defensively. I think Texas State is on the right side of the league to be on to have a great offense. So I 35 is possible, but I would think that would be an incredible achievement.
Wasn't that like
So
the thing about the Sun Belt? Weren't they like, we're the best defensive team or league in the world? What happened to that? What's going on?
Troy fell off. That was the big thing. Troy fell off.
I need my Cure Bowl champions to be ready whenever they get paired with UTSA again.
yeah, where are they going to be in the rematch? Well, right now, I mean, UTSA.
Yeah, right now I guess trending down UTSA, but
yeah,
still.
let's not get too excited. UTSA might miss a bowl game. I don't want to be the person who says that, but hey, we're putting it out in the world here. UTSA no longer the darlings of the group of 5.
Yeah, you're not getting any UTSA coverage in North Dakota like last year.
Oh no, and I'm still bitching about that. No, it's Tulane now, which is a good way to segue, Scott, because I want to complain about the rest of the group of 5 here. Is Tulane that good? Because I'm sick and tired of hearing about them. Like, I don't think personally that Tulane is the type of team that is going to be going into like, I don't know, Tuscaloosa and winning games. That's me. I'm just sick of
that do that?
Huh?
How many teams are there that are going to be doing that?
Well, right now I don't know, but I'm sick of Tulane. Why are they as good as they are?
Line of scrimmage. That's all it is. I mean, every single offensive lineman was a starter on last year's Cotton Bowl team. They brought back nearly every single player on the front 7. They are playing at a very high Power 5 level along the line of scrimmage, and that's the entire difference for them. There's just nobody in the group of 5 that comes anywhere close to what they're doing up front.
Do you think that they're the type of team that in like 2 or 3 years we're talking about a potential shift? Like they jump to, God forbid, the ACC or something like that?
I don't think so. I think Tulane is stuck where they are, and I have no idea how long this will last because it never lasts for any group of 5 team.
Well, hold on. UCF, they were able to go from the group of 5 into the Big 12.
Yeah, because something major happened. Are we expecting something major to happen again to where enough spots are going to be opened up for a Tulane to hop in? Because Tulane has been passed up already several times.
Okay.
Many, many times.
Former SEC. The only former
Yeah.
SEC school.
This is
Yeah,
actually
I don't know. I think that,
this is actually perfect, Scott, because I wanted to talk to you because you're very Sunbelt savvy, and I was just educated on the Sunbelt on this fucking podcast like 3 months ago. But like everybody, like once Texas State gets like a semblance of success, right? Everybody's like, oh, where are we going next? Is it the American? Is it the ACC? Are we restarting the Pac-12? The Sun Belt, right? Is it? Am I wrong? Is this the perfect spot for Texas State right now, or slash like in the
Andrew,
immediate future?
do you remember Andrew when Georgia State won like 7 games and Ben Moore said that they were going to go to the American? This happened
yes, I
like
do.
three or
I do
four
because they
years
were in
ago.
Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that means that doesn't have anything to do with what I was going to say, but it made me think about it though. This is a pretty good spot. I mean, there's no G5 that you move up to from here. I think it's kind of simple as that. Uh,
We argued with the UTSA guys about, and this is a good time we can hear the other side of the argument. UTSA in the American Conference believes that they are in the best conference. I told them, I said what we have been, our talking point has always been, I don't care about metropolises in the digital streaming age. That does not matter to me. I care about teams on the field and winning bowl games, and Texas State just does that more. Or not Texas State, the Sun Belt just does that more. I'm putting Texas State in that group, like Texas State, Detroit, the South Alabama, the coastal of the world. They're in that conversation now. No, but what's the other side of the argument? Give the argument for the Sun Belt.
I think that the conversation has shifted this year a little bit, and I've even seen some American fans talk about it on Twitter. The Sun Belt is much deeper. The Sun Belt, like 1 through 10, could play in a bowl game this year, and that's kind of insane. Like Arkansas State, ULM, maybe Southern Miss, maybe Old Dominion. Is there anybody else that you can think of that's not good enough to win a bowl game this year?
Matt would argue Georgia State.
No. Yes, he would. They would have to collapse at this point to not make a bowl game. They're 4-0. They are. It's a much deeper league than the American. The thing that the American has is the one team, and that they've always had this. They've always had this year after year. The one team at the top that just sits above the rest. The Sun Belt doesn't have that, and I think the problem with the Sun Belt is that it's going to have a hard time getting that one team because everyone is so even. Everyone is just going to eat each other alive inside of that bucket, and nobody is going to pull themselves out of it. But I think the argument for the conference being better is that there's 10 bowl teams in this league.
I look at it this way, that the Pac-12 cannibalized itself year after year after year. And because there was only 4 playoff spots, they never really got anybody in there. It was USC one year. I think it was Washington one year. But for the most part, those teams out west completely ate themselves and kind of prevented themselves from getting a TV deal. Whereas the Sun Belt, they have their TV deal. They're not trying to go to CBS or go to NBC and say, hey, can we like work something out? They are firmly established in ESPN. Like ESPN literally owns the conference. I'm cool with that. I think that that's a good place to be. And like I told the guys in the American, like, you're not going on CBS. I'm not flipping channels on network television and finding it. They're not playing on USA Network, or they're not playing on, most of their games are on the NFL Network or on the Stadium app or somewhere else. Whereas, like, I think the Sun Belt is in a great spot right now. I do like what you said, 1 through 10 making bowl games, because I think you're right. This probably is the deepest that it's ever been. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, by far. I mean, from a TV perspective, that's something that the American fan can still, hang their hat on. That deal is still much larger. I think it's like $7 million per school, and some else is like 2.5. But I do think that could shift very quickly. I mean, I don't know how much ESPN is willing to pay once SMU is out of the picture, and your league is just Memphis and Tulane and some other guys that are just kind of there existing. But the Sun Belt, I feel like, has that upward momentum. And I've noticed a lot this year. There have been some Saturday nationally televised games inside of a home Sun Belt stadium. You don't typically get 2 Sun Belt teams playing on ESPN, a national ESPN channel, at the same time at home. That happened on Saturday. Troy played a home game on ESPN. Marshall played a home game on ESPN. That's not normal. That's not normal for the league. Another game, I can't remember which one, another game just got elevated to an ESPN channel.
Our game.
Texas State, Louisiana.
Exactly. There you go. I think the TV perspective is still shifting. I think that's still changing, and I think it's still moving towards the Sun Belt Conference.
All right, let's talk Eastern Sun Belt. This is a good way to kind of wrap things up with you, man. The East is so wild. Marshall got reprimanded for having one of the wildest drone videos of all time. It looks incredible. Jakob, our incredible editor, can put some of the film right here for us. Dude, the East is so stinking deep that I think that the pick before the season, JMU, might be the third best team. I seriously think that Marshall and Georgia State are in this conversation now where they could be better than JMU. JMU, of course, not playing in the Sun Belt Championship. They are in their second year of non-bowl eligibility. They can't win the conference, can't go to a bowl game this year. Next year is when we unleash the dogs. Talk to me about the East.
I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, you kind of hit it all. Even the team at the bottom has a win over a Sun Belt West team with Old Dominion. And then Georgia State has a win over Coastal Carolina already. We had this question asked on our Twitter space. How many different teams have a legit chance of winning that division? It's like 5. It's like 5 or 6. Obviously, well, James Madison could technically win it, but they can't play in the title game. Including James Madison, it's like 6. If you take Georgia State away, it's like 5. That is a ridiculous division. I think it's the most competitive in the FBS. I don't think there's another division where you could say there's 4 or 5 different teams that have a chance of winning that. App State looks like, I can't say they look like a wagon after what happened against Wyoming, but they look like the toughest out in the conference to me. Georgia Southern, if they gave up 3 points to Ball State, if they figure out how to play defense with that offense, they could win. They could win the East. They could play in the Sun Belt title game. Anything can happen over there, and I honestly I couldn't tell you. Couldn't even begin to predict what's going to happen. Other than I think I'm taking both feet out of the Coastal Carolina bandwagon again.
I talked you out of it. I'm glad.
I thought you were on it.
So here's the deal. I was able to convince everybody to get on it so I could get off of it again.
We've gotten on and off too many times for me to keep up with it.
Here was my take, Jakob. I said that Grayson McCall coming back was not a good thing for Coastal, because what that told me is that he went to get his NFL grade. It came back lower than he wanted, and he was going to come back. That never works. It never, ever works for these college quarterbacks. If I was a college coach, I'd love to see my guy come back.
Worked almost okay for Bo Nix, right? He's doing okay.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know about Bo Nix. That feels like a special case. But, like, I put Grayson McCall in the Matt Barkley bucket, where it was like a really good junior year. Tyler Jones, if you want to do more closer to home for Texas State fans.
I argued Tyler Jones would never play in the NFL ever. Like, he's just a scrub. He would have gotten cut if Max Duggan got cut, and Stetson Bennett, who's probably an alcoholic and is dealing with other personal issues, got cut from a team. What the hell is this guy's excuse? Some scrub from Texas State could have played? No.
Hey, look, there have been wilder stories. Wilder stories have happened. I saw Grayson McCall last year. I thought he was a great quarterback 2 years ago when he had that duel against BYU on the teal field. Last year, he was banged up a little bit. This year, I did not like him coming back to school, and I hated the pairing with Tim Beck. And I think that Tim Beck is part of the reason, Scott, that Coastal is in the spot that they are. Granted, the offensive line isn't as good as it was 3 years ago. The defense has gotten a lot worse. Grayson McCall has gotten a lot worse. He's not even talked about when we talk about the top. Am I wrong here, Scott? He's not talked about when we talk about the best quarterbacks.
Or is it Tim Beck? I mean, you have Grayson McCall, and you have Jared Brown and Sam Pinckney, and you've got that big stable of running backs, and all you could do is 17 against Georgia State. That points to Tim Beck more than it points to Grayson McCall for me.
So we don't point fingers here on Squaring Around, but if we were to point a finger, who would we point at?
I'm pointing at Tim Beck.
Okay.
And if you can't do it with this offense, do you think Tim Beck can ever do it?
Ooh.
At Coastal Carolina?
Are we talking about firing Tim Beck after 4 games?
Not after 1 year, but I mean, if they can't do it with this team, there's no reason to give the Chanticleers any second thought about winning this division ever again, as long as Beck is the coach.
Wow. So who do you have? Rank these coaches for me. Butch Jones, Tim Beck, whoever's running the show over at ULL. Because I have no idea who the head coach of Louisiana is anymore.
It's Desormeaux. It's Michael Desormeaux. That's a tough one. So I've only seen like a few games from Tim Beck. Butch Jones has had several years, and it's been bad.
It's been real bad.
It's been really bad.
Where do you draw the line? Crying on the sideline after a loss that is like the worst loss of all time. I think that was a program L when they went to Oklahoma and just got the doors beat off of them. I'm pretty sure they had high school players running the score up on them on that Saturday. Where do we cut Butch Jones off?
Well, obviously that wasn't the line for them, and they are now undefeated in conference play so far. So, you have to wait a little bit now.
Do you have to wait a little bit?
You have to at least see what happens. I mean, when you're 1-0, you can't just.
Who has had a worse tenure? Butch Jones at Arkansas State, which he kind of had to rebuild everything. Let's be honest here.
Who are you going to say that's any worse than this?
Or former Troy coach,
Chip Lindsey?
Neil Brown at West Virginia.
Oh, Neil Brown at West Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, they at least played in a bowl game or two, I think. So.
Yeah. You know he has the worst 4-year stretch since 1976 to 79?
I didn't know that.
He is by far the worst coach in the Big 12. Anyway, so you're putting Butch Jones ahead of him, I guess, or behind him?
Butch Jones has had a much worse tenure.
I would agree. It's funny, Jacob, because Arkansas State used to be a proud program. Like when we were in school, Arkansas State, the Red Bulls were pretty good. Like it was them, Louisiana were the two teams that consistently were playing in the West, and then Troy and South Alabama. There's 4 teams that were consistently in the mix. And now Arkansas State is are they below ULM? I know that's your least favorite program in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, it is my least favorite program. Not counting South Alabama, but to me this year that roster at least is below ULM. I would love to see more from that true freshman quarterback if that was just a Southern Miss thing or if he's actually very, very good.
Wouldn't that be Butch Jones's luck? Is that he finds a true freshman quarterback and then ends up winning let's say he goes, I don't know, 5 wins in conference. Just absolutely shocks everybody. Doesn't go to a bowl game, but just is just enough that we can give him one more year.
I think that's what happens if they go 5-3 in the Sun Belt with Jalen Raynor. Yeah, Butch Jones is back next year.
That's insane.
Crazy. Well, you guys have both hinted at this too, but I guess you're not buying into the world beater take for Georgia State.
Well, Scott, you start there. World beater take. I'm mixed. I'll start there.
That's my Sun Belt Player of the Year over there. Georgia State, I don't know. They do look better than expected, but they've played a pretty awful schedule. I mean, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Well, of course, UConn's super good, but Charlotte as well on the road. They got Troy and Marshall in back-to-back games, both of those games in Atlanta. By the middle of October, which is they have a bye week after Troy, we're gonna know. We're gonna know if they're frauds or if they're real.
I'll say my piece here. I got a mixed bag. On one hand, this is the negative side we'll start for. Every year I bet on Georgia State, they end up blowing up at the midway point of the season. Every single time they find a way to have the wheels completely fall off. Something goes wrong, a guy gets hurt, a coach gets sick, something happens and they completely fall off. So I'm not discounting that. I think Georgia State has a lot of challenger vibes to them. You know what I mean? Where you think everything is good and all of a sudden it's blowing up on national TV. That's my first point. My second point is I'm rooting for Georgia State harder than I've ever rooted for a Sun Belt East team because of one guy, Matt, who's in the Fun Belt Fridays on Wednesday. And this guy has, and look, if you never listened before, you need to tune in. It's happening Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Don't miss out. Matt, Jacob, I've bitched about this guy so many times to you.
You have.
He is by far the antithesis of me. He is, whereas I am wrong and funny, he's wrong and dumb. It drives me crazy, this guy.
We got to bring this guy on the fucking podcast just so I can see you two duke it out.
For whatever reason, yeah, I'll invite him.
Yeah, please do. Because I don't know anybody else who fucking talks about this stupid team.
So, for whatever reason, he is so anti-Georgia State. He has lied through his fucking teeth about this team. He said that Coastal would beat it by 20. That didn't happen. He said that UConn would hold them to 0 first downs. That didn't happen. So I'm at the point now where I am actively rooting for Georgia State whenever they play literally anyone. I'm all in.
GSU, I think, has the toughest schedule left, remaining of any other Sun Belt team. So I think it's gonna shift Matt's direction pretty soon.
Well, a broken clock is right twice a day. And if you continue to come, seriously, if I said every week Texas State's going to lose, at some point they will lose. There's not a team in Sunbelt who will go undefeated. If I just continue to say bad things would happen. So
it's how the takes are coming across. You pointed out how he was talking about Coastal Carolina. If he had simply said Georgia State has that propensity for having a letdown game in these type of moments, it would have made sense.
I would have agreed.
He jumped so far. He jumped so far and just said Coastal's going to win by 20. He didn't have a reason. He just said that's what's going to happen. He doesn't like Georgia State.
And you know what? Ben Moore and me, we've had our differences. There's been a couple times I've come on podcasts with Scott and taken some shots at Ben. We're tight now. We're like besties because he is the Georgia State minister of propaganda on that side of the conference, and I'm buying it. I'm buying all of it.
I wouldn't buy anything right now.
So who would yeah, this is the Sunbelt economy. All right, let's talk Sunbelt economy then. Stock prices. Whose stock right now would you buy in the East?
Georgia Southern. I would
Okay.
buy Georgia Southern. They look like they have the most upward potential. I don't know what the buy price is. Maybe fifth in the East. I would say absolutely purchase that. They could be top 3 for sure. And I would sell Coastal. Maybe it's too late to sell Coastal, but I would sell Coastal.
You might get burned on that price, I think, too. Yeah.
Maybe you got to do what I do is artificially inflate the stock, tell people that they're really good, and then dump it and then get back off the bandwagon.
I feel like one of those like millennial billionaires, that bought a bunch of Bitcoin like a long time ago, because I've had a lot of Bobcat bonds and now I'm fucking sitting pretty for nothing. I'm just smoking hopium, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. So what is the odds that Texas State plays in the conference championship, Scott?
I don't know what the odds are. Pretty strong. I feel like the West is just such a clusterfuck at the moment. I don't think anybody's really stood out. I will stand by South Alabama for some reason until they tell me not to. But to me, second place could be anybody.
Arkansas State, top of the division right now.
Maybe not Arkansas State. If they go 1-7, 1-7 seems like the most likely record for them still.
Would ULM be 0-8? Are you picking them at 0-8?
No, ULM is if I have Arkansas State 1-7 with that win over Southern Miss, that means ULM's got 1 win. It's Arkansas State. But they might win too. I mean, Louisiana's not good. If I haven't said that yet, they're trash. And the Cajuns are not a good football team.
Might get a win on national TV in 2 weeks, Zimmy.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
That's going to be on ESPN or ESPN2 or something like that.
ESPN2 or ESPNU.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about that one, man, is that if Texas State embarrasses Louisiana on national TV, conversations will be had. There will start to be conversations because the general public, huh?
Let me get a tattoo. Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. No, but the conversation for casual Sunbelt fans, they think Louisiana's good. So embarrassing the Cajuns on national TV would put the Texas State stock price at an all-time high. We're talking $100 a share. We're talking Apple stock prices for Texas State.
I hate that team, man.
Huh?
I hate that team so much. For the baseball team, those are my guys. That's my ride or die for Texas State baseball team.
Troy has a natural enemy in South Alabama. Texas State's still looking for ours, Scott. Who do you suggest?
Well, there's nobody nearby. I would suggest Arkansas State because that would be the easiest one.
I've been pushing the Marshall rivalry. That's my 2029 Sun Belt Conference title championship game. Texas State Marshall.
It's not a bad one. Old Dominion, if we're going down that route, maybe.
I like Jakob's idea where we just circle Marshall. Like Texas State plays the conference championship, they miss out barely. And then they make it and we miss out barely. And it's just we're both just circling like sharks in the water before we can attack. You know what I mean? In 2029 is we get that finally. It's finally Texas State and, Marshall are finally both good at the same time and they can play each other.
I think GJ is the only coach I haven't told I'm actively pushing this rivalry. I told Coach Johnson, I told Coach Trout, and they're both in. So # beat Marshall whenever we play them.
Marshall. Thunder and who?
Thunder and who? Yeah, exactly. No, their fan base is really nice too. Got a couple followers from the Thunder and Herd fan base. So thank you for not being complete fucking dickheads like UTSA, man. God, I hate those guys.
Well, y'all will play within the next 2 years at least. With the
Yes.
rotation.
Yeah. And then I think we play them all the time in baseball and basketball because they actually would like to play us, you know? It's a fun activity when we play those sports, at least recently.
Marshall's good. Marshall
Yeah.
low key is like good across. Like I think we argued about this a couple years ago. Who has the best athletic program, Scott? And wasn't Marshall one of those like when they were added, we were like, oh shit. Now Southern Miss, I thought they were pretty good across the board, men's and women's sports. Then I found out you were stealing welfare money. So I think that kind of has to take a asterisk.
The team that benefited from that is pretty meh. They're kind of average.
Volleyball
So,
team?
I don't know. Cancels out to me.
You know, I'm going to steal welfare money. I love Texas State women's sports. I'm a big advocate for women's sports at Texas State. I don't know if I'm funneling that money to volleyball. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know if
that money did not go to y'all's cool basketball arena that was definitely built like in the Roman times, like, you know.
Oh yeah, the one built by Julius Caesar. No.
Yeah, no, it looks sick, but you can tell very not comfortable.
No, it's definitely like the most archaic place that I've ever walked in because you just walk through the doors and then there's the court right there in front of you. You just have
high
to
school
stumble
gym.
down the flight of stairs. Yeah, it's a
Kind of
place.
embarrassing.
It is a place to be.
I think I would funnel my money towards basketball if I was going to steal money from the disenfranchised.
What's the cheapest way to do it, though? I think I would funnel money to the women's golf program, win a natty. I'm like, whoa, Texas State women's golf is on fire right now. They got a 5-star recruit.
Here's the thing: I don't know where you put that banner. That's always been my thing. That
because they don't have a facility. They practice in Kyle, actually, at the Plum Creek Fairway Landings at Plum Creek. Like,
so what? So Plum Creek gets a banner? No, that's my thing. Like, if Texas State wins anything, yeah, we put something up in the stadium. If basketball wins something,
we remember we used to have a fucking golf course right across the way in the Meadow Center area, and then that got washed out by a severe flood where the SWAT had to rescue people. So,
yeah, which I'll tell you, the frat community in Texas State, biggest L they ever took. People die, and that's still second. Losing that golf course is huge, a huge loss to the fraternity community. It's rough times. Scott, thanks for joining us this week, and plug where we can read your work and where we can listen to you.
Just on Twitter. Please don't go anywhere else to find me. Just go on Twitter. Scott Watkins TU. That is the only place I exist at. You can find all of it right there.
Nice.
Living on X, that's got to be dangerous. Thanks, man.
Thanks again, Scott.
Thank y'all.
Squaring Around is proud to partner with Home Field. Home Field's premier brand for athletic gear. You can rep any team that's represented on the Home Field collection, not including Texas State yet. I'm still holding out hope. Use code SQUARE at checkout. Get any team gear. You can get the Longhorns. You can get the Tulane Green Wave soon. Texas State. Just saying. Andy, what a great interview. A lot of great insight about Southern Miss, who I guess like a lot of people, if you asked everybody with a gun to their head at the beginning of the season, who's going to win? Texas State, Southern Miss. You said Southern Miss. They got a lot of history over there. I think they're 2-1 against us all time since we joined the Sun Belt. And yeah, but a little bit different situation over there in Hattiesburg this year.
They're a new team to the Sun Belt. That's why they don't have that rich history of Texas State Golden Eagle rivalry going on. No, I picked Southern Miss before the season to be higher in the conference than Texas State. Remember, we started this podcast firmly 6-6. Now we're at 7-5, baby. We're climbing on up.
Up like the Jeffersons.
Talking to Scott is a fun time. You know, we do the spaces on X every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. You don't want to miss out on that. But I'm glad he was able to come on and talk to us about the Golden Eagles. Now, here's where I want to start, Jacob.
Let's go.
He mentioned the defense is worse. The offense can only really run the ball. They don't have much of a pass. Texas State against Nevada got ate up a little bit in the first half in the run before kind of calming things down and playing a lot tighter defense in the second half. Are you concerned in any way that Southern Miss opens up the floodgates and really runs the ball on Texas State?
You know what I'm concerned with is just like Southern's probably ability to play a cleaner version of football right now, because Texas State, what they're doing the best at right now is like, ooh, fast, like, you know, good stuff. And like, love to see it, but like, it's their inexperience with the offense, really. Like, and that's why it's like all this. I have a stat for you actually too. Offensive penalties, 5 for 34 yards. Defensive penalties, 4 for 45. Not fucking good, man.
Not great.
That kept Jackson State in the game for a while, like more comfortable until it was a 40-point game at one point, and then this past game it just basically gifted Nevada the thing. And then we're talking to Scott mostly about like the run game that Southern's probably going to institute. Because if you look at us on tape, you're like, oh, these guys can't guard shit if they're on the ground. If they're in the air, hey, 50-50 ball. But I think like what's really concerning is Texas State's inability to contain mobile quarterbacks. Like anybody who has a flash of like Frank Harris in them, or Frank Harris before, Ben Bell put him down in UTSA game. But like, Nevada had a semi-mobile quarterback, and that guy was all over the place. Just give him 10 yards, basically, if he gets out of the pocket.
Which you don't want to go too far ahead, but there are some mobile quarterbacks on the eastern side of the bracket that make me a little nervous. The West, however, not a lot of guys that I'm super concerned about being mobile threats. So that makes me feel a little bit more confident. What's interesting about Texas State to this point is also the injuries. They've lost a bunch of guys. It's starting to pile up a little bit. You did mention the inexperience from Texas State. That's why we continue to be a second-half team, I think, is that we do need to get that first-half jitters out of the way. Once Texas State's coaching staff knows what the other team's doing, they do a really good job game planning after halftime. We've seen it through 2 weeks now. The second half, Texas State has looked worlds better than they did in the first half. So if they can come out and contain Southern Miss in the first in Hattiesburg, the second half, I have a lot of faith in Texas State.
I'm so glad you brought this up, actually, because I've been having a lot of fun shooting some of the game on the sidelines. I usually shoot the first half, or if Ish or somebody else is important from Dave Campbell's, I'll just go shoot the whole game because it's fun. And it's like fishing, I got one really good touchdown and now I'm hooked. I need to get it. I need to get him. But it's really cool being by the action too. And then one of my cheap thrills when I first started doing sports journalism was taking pictures of players and tagging them on Twitter and then getting thousands of fucking retweets. It's fun. But anyway, I'm back doing that stuff kind of. And
shopping for cheap thrills.
Yeah. Looking for love in all the wrong places. But anyway, back to shooting video and shit. And I'm with Zach Webb from Win Now Get Bent. Shout out Zach. And he, obviously was not covering this team like prior to this year. He joined KEF like a little late in the summer, or maybe I guess media day around there, like maybe before that too. And he was like, man, what's going on with this team? And I was like, oh, wow. A lot of these people have not seen Texas State flounder. I have, sir. And let me tell you, we have always been a second half team. I'm glad you brought it up. Because, like, how did people forget? We have a few games that are successes, and we forget what it's like to be in the doldrums of this season.
I would argue Texas State was not a second half team the past couple of years. I would argue that is a
they were just
phenomenon.
Dog shit. Yeah.
Yes, that is a new phenomenon for Texas State to be a second half team. I'm cool with you saying this season they've done a good job. Baylor game in particular, I remember coming out and being like, "Oh, we look really good in the second half."
Well, it's the same deal for like. I don't know, maybe like people were like kind of dogging on the attendance numbers and like, oh, wow, people are leaving at halftime. I'm like, this team's not even used to being in games come half. What are you fucking talking about, man?
I think it's interesting that GJ was talking about the atmosphere against Jackson State in the homecoming game, and where they put up a ton of points and they look like the best show on turf, like, right? One of the best offensive showings ever for Texas State. And then you think about this week where fans maybe didn't come out as hard as we thought they were. 19,000 in attendance, a couple people left at halftime. And you look around, you think to yourself, like, I wonder if GJ is used to this, because Incarnate Word wasn't filling up the stadium like that. Incarnate Word's, what was their average attendance? You were in San Antonio. It's not like they're putting like 40,000 people in the stands. So
I mean, they don't have the space for it. Let's be honest.
No. So I think to myself, like, I wonder if there's like part of the fan or part of the player experience where they look around, because I know talking to players in the past, Brian Lennon in particular, where you look in the stands and you can see your folks, but you can't see the guy from chemistry class, and nobody from anthropology showed up, and nobody really came from the fan point of view. So I think to myself, like, with these guys, I wonder if this is the most fans that they've had, or if like having those fans leave early has any sort of detriment to them, or if it doesn't even matter. If GJ is so locked in that it doesn't matter who's on the stands.
You ready for this?
We have seen.
You ready for this? I looked up the attendance from last year at UIW. This is against McNeese. Ready? Drum roll. 2,500.
Wow. Yeah. So okay, then I have no concern then.
Which is more than Texas State had at some point, I'm sure. So.
Oh yeah. Well, at some point, not recently. Thank God.
Not recently.
Yeah. I mean, look, and Texas State's going to continue to fill the stands. Attendance across college football has been a problem, especially the Group of 5 level. All of these things have been said a billion different ways in different times. I just think that Texas State right now, for fans that are unhappy with the attendance, just give it a little bit of time. Second half of the season, I imagine that South Alabama game is going to be near capacity. End of the year, Texas State will have a chance to maybe win their 7th game, be 7-5 on the year, or potentially that could be a game that winner goes to the Sun Belt title game. There's a possibility that that's the case too. So for fans that are unhappy with the attendance last week, I think that you're a little bit premature in that.
Also, it was only like 5,000 off from the week before. I mean,
5,000 is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, compared to what? Like, still last week, if you look at what the athletics department has said was the average from last year, 17,000, you're just shy over that. Like 19,257 or whatever it was very good. Like, that's more than the average. You just beat the average over time, and that's how you get bigger attendance numbers. Also, you're sponsored by the Koch brothers, so I know you don't want to say this, but climate change, that's the real issue here, right, Andy?
Yeah, don't put that bad juju on me. Do not put that bad juju on me. No, I'm still trying to get us that Daily Wire sponsorship. No, so Texas State, when the game kicks off at 7:30, is always going to have a better attendance than when it kicks off at noon in the middle of September. Now, as it gets cooler, I imagine that it's going to be a little bit easier to pack the stands. But right now, with it being 100 degrees during the day, I don't think that people are really enticed by that. However, I will say this. The reason that Texas State and a lot of those Southern teams have the best looking fans, I think it's because they're wearing less clothes. Because I'm up here in the bitter cold. It was 65 degrees, a lot of hoodies, a lot of sweatshirts. It feels more like college football atmosphere. But when you go to town at Texas State and you go down to a lot of those teams in the Southeast and just the Sun Belt in general, it looks like spring break sometimes. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
It looks like spring break. Yeah.
Spring break.
Spring break. This is for all my aging alums like myself. You're like, where are all the students? What's going on? We have so much more room that we could fill. Imagine their struggle going through the tailgate, going to probably a Darty first, then going to a tailgate, then trying to escape the cops if they're underage. All right, there's a lot of obstacles facing these students, and I applaud the ones who show up and continue to show up each day and make it to the stadium.
This is a good time to insert this tidbit. I am a baby J journalist. Jakob Rodriguez has covered things as important as city hall meetings to expansions of infrastructure. Jakob, Trident Gate. Let's talk about it.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about this. Because this is perfect. Because the only reason I really know as much as I do right now is because I was shooting at the game, like I was talking about before. So I'm walking into the elevator to go back up to the press box and get another Big Red and a water. And Mr. Bowtie from Mr. Bowtie's high school powerhouse or whatever he calls it is there. And he's like, hey, man, somebody just threw a Trident into the stands. I'm like, what? What's going on? So he's talking to everybody about it. I'm dehydrated. I'm not really listening. There's some baseball players who he's talking to about it. I go back into the press box. That's what he yells into everybody that will basically listen to him. So Colton and Kef get on the case. I'm rehydrating, drinking a Big Red, kind of just coming to again. And, because climate change. And
you
so eventually
awful.
They start looking at it. They start looking at replays and stuff. So Colton has this fucking huge viral tweet that a band member stole the turnover Trident. You can watch it all on Mr. Bowtie's page on YouTube, but basically gives it to the student section. He did not throw it at anybody, which was what was first reported, and then Colton later clarified that that's what happened. And the band member got ejected. I don't know what's going on with that. I did reach out to the San Marcos Police Department to be like, hey, you guys know anything about this? Or what's going on with that? I've heard some people.
I gotta imagine they probably escorted him out and then they just let him go. There's no way that they were like, we gotta put handcuffs on this.
Well, okay, so
and like
we were
throw him
talking
in the Who
about
Scout,
this.
right?
We were talking about this ahead of the press conference when GJ and coming out to talk about a win. We're talking about fucking Trident get still like three hours later. But I was like, so if this guy, you're telling me, Kev, like if this guy stabbed somebody with a trident, basically he wouldn't get arrested? That's assault for sure. So I knew there had to be something more to the story. And of course, it was a little bit more innocent than that.
Yeah, of course it was. All right, so Texas State, do we get our own turnover trident now? What is do we
I'm kind of
lean
surprised
into
we
that?
didn't have one in the first place, right? Isn't that like a common thing now?
Yeah, a lot of people have like bits and stuff. I don't think GJ is the type of guy that's like, let's get a bit going. You know what I mean? Or like a
Yeah,
shtick.
it
He
is kind
doesn't
of
seem like a big
cheesy to
shtick
start.
guy.
Like it has to be something like this, where like this something like this happens, and that's why we do something different. Maybe we
And
do it. We just do our own trident.
it's one of those things. I like it because it's
They
the
were really
real
pissed though. Like one of the coaches, like I'm assuming this is a GA that they made jump up into the stands and go get the trident back. But then he like fist bumps like one of his coordinators who's like, "Yeah, you tell him." It's like, okay, you just took a trident back from the student section. Big work.
I don't think I'd
Big
be
guy
good
over there. Big guy.
I understand. I understand that you got like a ton of coaches and like, but you are on a 11 game losing streak if you're Nevada. I think I care more about the game than I care about the Trident. Like you got to get the Trident back, but I'm more concerned. Like if I was the head coach, who the fuck cares about the Trident? I'm trying to win the game.
This is
So,
where they
you know,
went wrong. This is where they went wrong. For the first home game, right, at Jackson State, they created this like really nice walkway for photographers, the band. A lot of people come through the sidelines, which is like I'm kind of peeved off at like how there's so many people on the sidelines now.
Hey, if it's
It's
recruits, I don't care.
nuts, dude. It's so many. It's alums. It's recruits. It's mothers. It's daughters. It's everybody. It's crazy. And then it's me and like a bunch of other journalists there, like trying to get some videos and stuff. It's also worse on the other side because it's like blocked off with the new construction going on. Regardless, right? But they created a really nice open lane so that the different people can like go back and forth, right? For Nevada, they were actually pushed, like they were playing on like as close as they could to the line, like the football game was going on, and that's where they were sitting. And then all of their stuff was backed up towards the thing. And the Trident was also right against that wall too. So that's what you get for clogging up lanes like that. Also, just have it with you on the bench. No, that doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand. I don't understand why you don't want it right now. There needs to be an alliteration. It's turnover, Trident, turnover, tire, turnover, whatever. Texas State, if you're gonna have one, you got to have like an alliteration. So I don't want to deal with it now, but at some point, maybe we do take the Trident. Maybe that's next year, and we become the Mermaid capital.
Carl Schoening and Kev were actually talking about it too. They were talking about it like forever ago, I think. But turnover tube. So that's all that.
Yeah, I don't want that.
You don't want that?
No, they can keep that. I don't like that. I don't like anything that's like big. You know what I mean? Like thrown. There was a turnover thrown at Colorado. That's something that people enjoyed. I don't know.
Salamander. Turnover wild rice. Turnover
Trouth.
Taco.
Have Denise Trouth just on the sideline every home game.
Turnover Trouth. You lift her up in there.
Dap her up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for paying for everything, and then we complain about you.
Sounds like a plan. What else are we missing here?
I think we wrapped up Nevada. We did a pretty good job at that. I figured out what my issue is at these games. Because like, remember I've talked about it, right? Like I walk into Bobcat Stadium and it's like I'm on ecstasy or something. Like I just take like a thing of like hopium and I'm like, I'm on a pursuit of happiness. It's really affecting like everything I do now. Like it affects my gambling. I'm only up like $100. Instead, I should be up like $300 for the year. But it's given me so much hope in life. Texas State being good.
Oh no, 100%. And I will say this: that with Texas State being good, I do not care about the NFL at all. Like I've always said that if Texas State is good, my NFL team, the Vikings, are 0-3 right now. The loss did not really faze me.
It's softened the blow.
Yeah, it's so much easier to blow off. You're right. And it's like, why do I care? Like, Texas State won. This is something that's new. Now, granted, this is the first time in my life this has been the case, but, I'll take it. I will take it, and I will continue. And I will say this. We're 4 weeks in, 3-1. Best we've looked since 2013. Enjoy it. Enjoy it, fans. Do not take this for granted. Do not pretend like this is going to be something that's going to last the next decade or next 5 years or next 3 years. Take this season enjoy every single win because you don't know when this is going to happen again. I'm just saying, TJ Finley threw that touchdown.
You're like a senior in high school who comes back and lectures the next senior class.
Dude, TJ Finley threw that touchdown pass in the back of the end zone. I was like, this is great. This is perfect. I don't need anything more.
So what do you make of the two quarterbacks? Because they're using both quarterbacks.
They're using one quarterback and then they're using another in special.
They have him for like 5 plays.
Season game, end of season situations. I think it's good to continue to make sure that he's ready. If something happens at Finley, we've seen him take a couple big hits. I like that they are able to do that. I would like to see Malik in normal situations. I would like to see what it looks like.
Me too. Yeah. Oh, because when he recruited, you'll remember this too. But he was like, "Yeah, I came here to Texas State because they believe in my arm, and I've never seen myself as a running back or a receiver. They wanted me to be a quarterback. I want to be a quarterback. Let him cook."
Yeah, I'd like to see what that looks like. Hopefully this week against Southern Miss, it would be nice in the fourth quarter if you could do that. But what I don't want to see is what Texas State didn't do, which is Finley throws an interception and then they put Hornsby in. I don't want to see that. I'm glad that they stuck with Finley. I'm glad they trust him enough to say.
I think that was premature too, because it only happened for one game, so I don't know what happened. Maybe Finley's helmet came off, or I don't know.
Yeah,
it was like it was one play in the first half, and I was very confused by it. But it looks like they have like a whole series of plays that it's just like literally a read option or him. That's it.
Yeah, and like Malik, I think that he probably is a little frustrated with the way things are going. But I really admire that through 4 weeks we haven't heard anything. It would be. I think a lot of other programs we're seeing a tweet, we're seeing a subtweet, we're seeing an Instagram post. Colton or Kef or somebody else is getting like tweets out there, like anger in the quarterback room. But talking to Brady, man, like, in the situation they had with him and Vitt, like, I think that Texas State has done a really good job of building a quarterback culture where everybody's rooting for the other guy, and that you can't replicate, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a healthy competitive atmosphere because, I would hurt my feelings if we brought in another host and it was just waiting in the wings. Like, okay, Jakob can't perform. Time to bring in the ring here.
Colton came on a couple weeks in a row, and I was like, "Oh, is Jakob trying to replace me? What's going on here?"
No. I want to bring up something, Andy, because I think we've been running for it for a while. Andrew versus ESPN Plus, and the difference between home game 1 and home game 2.
It looked incredible. Big difference. And look, if I complain on Twitter and things change, guess what? We're going to keep complaining on Twitter. Yeah. You gave into the
someone's mob. Listening.
Gave into the mob. No, I said the tweet that got everybody really upset was I said that ESPN Plus is going to pay for their sins. The crew is going to pay for their sins. The sin was there was a play down the field, and instead of going right, they went left. So instead of getting the play developing in front of us, we got the other end zone. No big deal. They were correcting it. And look, our guy Jim Bob, both of us, you as well, we're all professional journalists. The people who run those ESPN cameras are barely students, so like they're children. Like I'm not going to go after them, right? Like they're children. They're learning what they're doing.
I'm not going to go after them except when I tweet about them. Yeah.
Which is fine. What I was upset by is how far away we were. I've seen high school football games that were shot better than that first home game. And the second game looked way better. It looked so much better. They definitely
moved cameras and they did a bunch of other stuff.
Yep, 100%. Now my question is, why was that not set up before game 1? Maybe that's something that we got to learn as the season goes on, but you got to remember we only get like 4 of these home games. Yeah. So I would like my 4 home games to look as good as possible.
Well, as a TV producer, I'll tell you, I fuck shit up all the time. And I just get back on the saddle the next day because I know there's another show.
Which is what they did. But you only get 4 of these. And, that's kind of what my point.
I'm kind of sad that we're not streaming this one, I think. Because obviously we're not in Hattiesburg. But, you know what I mean?
Yes. But every game is available. That's the big thing
on ESPN Plus.
Yes, so I'm excited about that.
And then ESPNU, ESPN2.
Grant has done a great job through 2 games. That has been another big part too. Is that I think Brant calling these games he's doing an incredible job. So I'm happy about that.
If you were publicly reprimanded like Marshall was for their drone video,
it looks incredible though.
Yeah, but what is a public reprimand? Is that even
what they did? But they got their pee-pee slapped. They said, "Don't do that again."
They got their pee-pee slapped.
They did. I mean, they said don't do that. They said,
So
okay,
you can't
great.
do that during a game? I didn't know that was a rule.
You can't do it when the other field. I think that's like the big deal is that like they flew that drone over Marshall coming out, but they also flew it over with the other team on their side of the field. And when you have drones flying around, injuries can happen. Those things fall out of the sky, or maybe a drone's flying over and they're picking up plays or something like that. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want a drone flying over you right before game time. Marshall, what they did creatively is what Texas State should be thinking about doing. Do not fly a drone. However, those creative ideas spawn incredible fan engagement on Twitter, on Instagram, and across the board. And I guarantee you there is some kid in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, who is deciding between Marshall, JMU, or somewhere else, and they see that video and they go, I want to go there. Because I was the same way. I came to Texas State, butterflies, rainbows, and Bikini Hill, and I was like, I'm in. I got to come here. And I guarantee you there's a kid in around Marshall who's deciding between colleges, sees that, and they go, I want to go there. So it was worth it.
It was pretty sick.
It was incredible.
And what do you make of the JMU's coach getting handed a phone that shows the replay on it in real time? That was funny.
Oh wait.
Oh, they're just showing. Signetti.
You can't use that.
Oh, he's got his phone out.
That you can't use that. That is illegal from the minute the replay has started.
Wow.
You can't do that.
I've never seen that. Coach pulls out his. Here we go.
There has to be some sort of discipline for that. You
like
can't
a technical
put your
foul.
Yes. You can't put your phone up in front of the official.
I thought that was funny.
That was good. Another one of those things where, like, I think as a coach, you take that.
Well, still shots can always distort and put things out of perspective a little bit. But, basically when you go on the road and play an out-of-conference team with their officials, you just want things to be sort of officiated objectively, fairly. It's a very difficult job being official. We went out to Weber a couple years ago, and I had a moment too with them. But in this particular situation, the first quarter and a half, we probably played the best quarter and a half of football to start a game since I've been here. I mean, we were up 24-0. We were humming. We had 230 yards. They had -12. And then they faked a field goal, and we were in field goal safe. We knew the fake was coming, and didn't defend it. And I had a great view of it, and it appeared from my perspective, because I was standing right there on the line, that the kicker had stepped out of bounds before he reached the end zone. So the official and I was asking if it had been reviewed yet. Then it became obvious that it got reviewed and they were going to proceed. And then I wanted to challenge. And then heat of the moment, somebody comes up and says a cell phone in my hand, says, here, this shows he's, what I mean? And you're not allowed to have that kind of technology on the sideline or use it. And shouldn't have happened. And I was just so immersed in the situation, I grabbed the phone. I shouldn't have done that. And the guy that gave me the phone feels awful about it, but it certainly has gotten a lot of attention.
The replay in real time is really interesting, especially with the way the Sunbelt's replay center has worked, where, again, we mentioned with Scott, play in the back of the end zone. I don't think that was a touchdown, but, nobody was back there to replay it, so it was a touchdown. I think that is good in spurts. What happened there, you don't want to show up an official.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I didn't know you couldn't have your phone on the sideline, because GJ's always recruiting. Just figured he'd have his phone texting recruits on the side.
No. They get upset. There's also a window where you can and can't hit recruits up. So
really,
yeah, there's a dead period, which if you keep up with men's and women's basketball, there was a dead period during the summer where I think it's a month or 6 weeks or whatever that you can't talk to recruits, which recruits can talk to me and I can talk to coaches. So if there's ever a recruit out there who's wants to make me a middle ground, I will happily make
That's
our compliance
just another reason you follow the Squarin Around podcast on Twitter at Squarin Pod.
Totally. If you're a recruit and you want to get in touch with a coach, contact me and I'll contact them for you.
Yeah, we have a direct line of communication with every coach at Texas State.
I'll tell you, the SIDs right now, they don't like that. They do not like that.
Yeah, I'm fucking lying for sure. I think that's all I want to talk about. Good game, kind of, at Nevada. Not really, but you know.
I think so. I think it was
we
good.
overcame it.
Showed resilience. I'd rather Texas State win games like that than lose them. You know what I mean?
That's
like
true.
I'd rather show some resilience.
The teams of yore would have lost. That's for damn sure.
Oh my God, yeah. And I look, fans who were on me, and I think on my side a little bit when it came to Texas State going down by 17. We have every right to panic in that situation.
I wasn't afraid for a fucking second, man.
GJ did not panic, and I'm glad that he didn't, and I'm glad that we trust TJ Finley. I give that performance a B+, and coming into Southern Miss, a win in the Sun Belt Conference puts us at 4 wins, which means we would be knocking on that play or the bowl game door. Right now we're halfway there, Jacob, to a bowl game.
I'm going to be a little bit more critical with my grade. I give him a C+ for pulling it out. But
wow,
yeah, then it's obvious they need to clean up a lot of shit. GJ talked about it too. Like even from his perspective, he was like, "That was awful. Like we didn't deserve to win that game, to be honest."
They scored 35 unanswered points.
Yeah, in the end. We were laughing, watching the sunset, and we were. It was fun, but it couldn't not been, and that would have sucked had we stolen the Trident and then lost that game.
Would have been bad. You're right.
Memes on memes. Worst fan base in the Sun Belt? I ask you again.
Worse in the Sun Belt? For acting? For the way that we act? Or for what?
Yeah.
Oh, not Texas State. It's not Texas State. No. But no, it's not. It's far and away, far and away, those Georgia schools.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say Louisiana.
The Georgia schools, I think, are the 2 ones that I have like the most. And then Coastal, really? Everybody hates their fan base. I like Coastal's fan base, but everybody is very upset about Coastal's fan base. Yeah, on social media. So, but I think the 2 Georgia schools have the most toxic fan base on Twitter. Which, you know, look, I've been advocating for Georgia State and Georgia Southern. They both have let me down in the past. I hope they don't do it this year.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.
We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
Better not come any closer.
Thanks for listening. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow the boys on Twitter. Eat 'em up. Eat 'em up.